If you find yourself angry that an unelected billionaire is getting paid $0 to audit unelected bureaucrats who spend billions of your tax dollars, you might just be a moron.
Oh, a moron. That would be pretty accurate now, wouldn't it? Good morning, everyone. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Hopefully, all of you patriots are having a great morning, and I had a really good day yesterday when I was not around. Good morning, Linda, and good morning, Allison. Oh, we're going to talk a lot today about the Democrat meltdown. I'm really worried about where this is going with Democrats because I think that they're kind of at the tip of their iceberg where they're all starting to implode. And as they see these actions by the Trump administration unfold, and they see that any efforts to stop Donald Trump are just simply not working, I think there's going to be a lot of people who absolutely lose their minds. And I'm going to play some videos today of some of these people losing their minds because it's completely unhinged, and it's going to be kind of interesting to see where it goes over the coming days. Now, on the flip side of that, I've also seen some Democrats with some common sense, not as many, but I have seen some Democrats come forward and say, hey, my fellow Democrats, let's just calm down a little bit because you know what? While we should be also happy to see all of the wasteful spending our government has done, and we should be happy that these issues are being brought to the forefront. No one wants to waste our tax dollars. We're just going to have to fight to keep the programs that are good. And it's kind of funny because when I hear them say that, I don't typically go on other people's pages to talk about my conservative views because I feel like I need to respect their liberal views. So I don't often go on and say anything, but the couple times that I have with people who I know, would appreciate my opinion either way, I will always say, this isn't about getting rid of good programs. It's about uncovering fraud, restructuring, rebuilding, and we're going to start fresh. Who couldn't welcome that? I mean, isn't that really helpful to both sides? I don't understand why Democrats see it as though we are, just eliminating them altogether. We're not considering their feelings at all. It's just that I think they hate Donald Trump so much. They hate Elon Musk so much that they can't see the lights. They can't seem to understand that it's like half of their brain is taken over that says, we hate Donald Trump. It doesn't matter what good he does. And they can't see the truth that a lot of what's happening right now, if not all of it, is really, really, really fantastic. It's going to take us as a country to a new place. We're going to become the powerful, great nation we once were. But all they're worried about is, oh my gosh, they could see my social security number. They're going to take away my social security benefits. They're going to take away my health care. We're not going to feed the poor people around the world their rice and grains. And none of this is true. None of it's true. We're going to continue to help people. But we're going to talk a lot today about the great Democrat meltdown. And we knew it was coming. We knew it was coming. And good morning, Karen. Allison says, yes, it's amazing to watch people direct their hate towards people telling them the truth and not those who lied to them. I know it's so strange, isn't it? So strange. Good morning, Glasna. Oh, you're on your way back to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Hopefully, you were doing some filmmaking there in Bloomington, or I'm sure you were there for something film related. For those that don't know, Glasna and her husband are fantastic filmmakers. And good morning, Kim. And so there's a lot going on today. We're going to talk about the Hamas releasing hostages and where that's going because it's going to be an interesting weekend to see how all of that unfolds. I want to talk to you about microplastics, a study that was done in China. And I know we don't always trust what the Chinese people are doing, but I think we know that microplastics are bad and potentially worse than what we even thought. And I personally have been purging plastic, hopefully, and Teflon. Hopefully, you do the same thing. we'll get into that. I got lots of videos to play today because there's just so much going on, particularly when it comes to the judges who are trying to stop Trump's executive orders. We have confirmations coming up, which is really exciting. We have arrests potentially coming up, of some notable folks. We'll get into that. Just lots in general to talk about today. Oh, it's like, where do we even start? Because there's so much craziness going on. For me personally, I almost didn't do a show today. I'm like in a sleep deficit. I don't know if any of you have ever been in this situation. I'm sure you all have at one point or another. I feel like I have worked every minute of the past couple of years with no break. I'll take a, 30 minutes to go do this, but it's like I'm rushing around. I'm running to the grocery store as fast as I can, hurrying up and getting back home or going back to work, or always running around. It's literally just, never ending. And I feel like this morning I almost didn't do a show because I woke up, my alarm went off at 5:30, and normally I'm awake long before my alarm goes off because I only sleep about 3 to 4 hours a night. And here lately, I haven't even been doing that. And it's like this morning I thought, man, I'm just going to sleep in. I'm not going to do a show because I have to work on Saturday too. So it's like not many days to sleep in. And then I'm like, well, I'm not going to be able to sleep anyway. So it's like, what's the point of sleeping in when you don't sleep anyway? I would just end up reading all these news stories and posting them on social media and be frustrated. This is like my outlet to get all my frustration out. So I'm like, you know what? We're just going to do it. We've got lots to talk about today. Gosh, lots to talk about every day. Colonel Joe Adams, of course, of the Washington Guard, going to join us tomorrow. Usually he joins us on Wednesdays. But unfortunately, Wednesday is really my busiest day when it comes to my anti-piracy work. So sometimes I can find people to work for me so that I don't have to miss the show. But other times it's something important going on and I have to be there myself. So I am so thankful for Colonel Joe Adams being patient with me and the show because I can't wait to talk to him tomorrow. There's always something going on, and hopefully he'll weigh in, in the situation tomorrow with Hamas because, as you guys probably know, Hamas has been releasing hostages like 3 at a time, and they'll do that to make different deals with Israel. Israel or someone will send in aid and they'll release 3 hostages. They'll send in supplies, they release 3 hostages. They'll agree to a ceasefire, well, 3 hostages. It's, but we're to the point right now where between Hamas and Israel, they have their own deal going on. These are 2 separate deals. 2 separate deals. So Hamas and Israel have a deal in which Hamas is going to release 3 more hostages in exchange for aid. And now, if you guys recall, a few days ago, Hamas called the whole deal off. They said Israel is not upholding its end on the ceasefire. So therefore, they would go back to their war stance and they would not be releasing any additional hostages. Now, somewhere along the line, that changed. They had a talk with Israel. They changed their mind. They said, okay, well, let's go back to the ceasefire. When we receive our aid, we'll release 3 more hostages. So they have their aid. They plan to release 3 more hostages. Now, there are 6 more in this deal with Israel. So after they release these next 3 hostages, there are still 6 more that they are set to release, according to this deal. Now, allegedly, they have a lot more hostages, but the deal they made with Israel was to release, I think it was 33 hostages altogether. And so they're nearing the end of that. There's 9 more to go as part of that plan, from what I'm gathering. And so then we have Donald Trump, who has his own agenda. And of course, Donald Trump has said to Hamas, you have to release all of the hostages and you have to release them all by Saturday at noon. Now, whether that means noon our time or noon Hamas time, I'm not sure on that, but Saturday at noon. And he's very clearly said, and we played the video on Tuesday, that if you do not release all the hostages at noon, all hell is going to break loose. Those were his exact words. Now, Hamas has already said, no, Donald Trump, we are not going to agree to your deal. We have this deal with Israel. We'll release 3 hostages in a couple days when we get more of what we want. We'll release 3 more. And then the next deal, whatever we get what we want, we'll release another 3. And that's the end of our deal. with Israel. So Trump, of course, he doesn't care about the deal Hamas made with Israel. He's saying, no, this is a new deal. This is a deal with us, the United States, and we are going to force you to release all of the hostages or else. Now, what the or else is, I don't know. And I don't expect Hamas to agree to Trump's deal. Yes, they may release 3 more. They might release 6 more. Who knows? They could release the additional 9, but at the same time, that's not what Donald Trump is saying. He says, no, I know you have more hostages. Let them all go. And I don't know what we're going to see take place when at noon on Saturday, this deal doesn't go through. And you're going to see headlines today, and those headlines are going to say, oh, Hamas and Israel, Hamas has come to their senses. They are going to release the hostages according to the Israel ceasefire. And I want to make sure that's not the same deal. There's 2 different deals going on. That's their deal with Israel. Israel and Hamas right now have a ceasefire, which is so far pretty successful, but that has nothing to do with the demands made by Donald Trump. So on Saturday at noon, if all of the hostages they have are not released, then we're going to see some type of action take place. I don't know what that action will be. At first I kind of thought, well, maybe Israel would, because I know I keep hearing stories that Israel is preparing to go into Gaza to assist with the removal of the 1.9 remaining people there to move them into another territory. And then, some people say, well, no, they're actually preparing with it. If they don't release all the hostages, they're going to go in a combative, type mode. We've heard that Egypt has their troops stationed around their border. That could be for a number of reasons also. It could also be because they're preparing, to go into Gaza. I don't expect that to happen. Egypt usually stays out of those types of things. A lot of people think they're preparing their troops on the border, because when Israel and the United States starts whatever it is they're going to do in Gaza, there's going to be a lot of people attempting to flee across the Egypt border. So there's a lot of different things that could go on. And Jay says, good morning, Jay, and good morning, Annette. Jay says, Hamas would be foolish to ignore Trump. They would be, because we know that if Trump says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. There's no way around it. If he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. What that something is, we just don't know. We don't know. And Allison says, hostages are just bargaining chips for Hamas. Allison, yes, hostages are just bargaining chips for everyone, unfortunately. We're all just pawns in the big game. And Glenn with the winning answer, carpet bombing. That's probably true. Glenn Thompson, probably true. I really do think that Trump has reached the point where he feels like you really can't eradicate Hamas without just destroying everything. There's a lot of people who feel that way, that you just can't destroy Hamas. And Hamas is an interesting entity when you think about it, because what exactly is Hamas? Is it a terror group? Is it people fighting for their liberation? The people in the Gaza Strip, and I'm not a Hamas sympathizer, that's for sure. I'm a human sympathizer, and these people have been through a lot. They really have. There's been fighting back and forth between these people, the Palestinians and the Israelites, for a very long time, as you know, a very long time. And what ends up happening is Israel, they control their water supply, and they control their electric, and they control their borders. So you have a group of people who really have no escape. They're kind of like in a barrel. And there is a coastline there, but they're not allowed to use it. And when they do something wrong, which sometimes is very serious, killing a, Israeli soldier, throwing, bombs, or, something else over rockets into Israel, well, they get punished. Their power is turned off, their water is turned off. And it's not really humanitarian what takes place. These people they really have been through a lot. And through that oppression, what has happened is a group called Hamas rose up through oppression. Anywhere you see oppression, there are people that rise up. People say that about gangs, in the United States, that If you take a really poverty stricken area, you'll see gangs because those are the people who feel oppressed and they have risen up and then they have become a gang and they're going to go take what they feel like they're not getting. And I'm not, trust me, I am not sympathizing with any gangs or Hamas or anyone else. But there are two sides to every story. And I don't really know what the answer to Hamas is. I don't think we should go in, as Glenn said, and carpet bomb the entire area. I don't want to see innocent people killed. But then you'll talk to other people and they say, well, there are no innocent people in the Gaza region. Why? Because they're all Hamas. They're all it would fight against Israel if given the opportunity. You can take out some people say, I'm not saying this, but some people will say, well, you can remove people who you think are affiliated with Hamas and get rid of all those people. But as you do, every other man and boy in the region is just going to rise up and they're Hamas too. So a lot of people do believe that, all of those people are just dispensable, that you can come through, just wipe out the whole area, and it doesn't really matter about the lives. So I hope that that doesn't happen. I can't imagine Donald Trump would harm innocent people. At least I don't think he would. I don't know what the answer is though. When Saturday at noon comes around and Hamas has not released these hostages, what exactly is going to happen? Are we going to carpet bomb them? Are we going to take some of the people to safety? Let's say the women and the children and the, younger men. What exactly is going to happen? I don't know. And it's certainly possible that Hamas will cave in between now and then. And then they'll say, okay, well, we're going to give up the hostages, but then what? And this is why I don't think that's ever going to happen because, and then what? So they give up all the hostages. That's all they have left, as their bargaining chips. And they've been really brutal to some of these hostages. I don't know if you guys noticed, but one of the females that was released, she was missing fingers. Now, was she missing fingers because of something that happened on October 7th? I don't really think so, because her fingers looked freshly bandaged, like something had just happened to her. So I still think these people are potentially being tortured. I don't know. They didn't look, thin. They looked like they've been eating. They looked healthy, otherwise missing a couple fingers. But I don't know what's going to happen here. We'll have to just wait and see. We know Donald Trump means business, but Hamas also knows that when they give up those hostages, it's over. It is absolutely over for them. If they're not all killed, being, people associated with Hamas, they're definitely going to be moved to another area. But that doesn't really work either. It just doesn't work. Look what happened in Syria with ISIS. When in the Syrian war, when Russia finally stepped in, the United States, we pretended like we were there fighting against ISIS when in fact we were actually working with terrorists in an attempt to oust Assad. We pretended under Obama that we were there trying to fight the terrorists, but we weren't. And what ended up happening is Russia stepped into the mix. Russia really was fighting ISIS. And then Donald Trump took office, and Donald Trump canceled Timber Sycamore, Obama's CIA plan to oust Assad. And then we actually started fighting ISIS together with Russia, with Iran, and some other, pro-Syrian groups. And what happened is we didn't kill ISIS. We didn't kill them. What we did is we diplomatically worked out a deal with ISIS, and we said, hey, turn yourselves in and your lives will be spared. You won't be imprisoned. We're just going to move you. Very similar to the situation, I think, with Hamas. They said, we're going to move you. And what they did is and again, ISIS is a lot like Hamas in the way, not the same group, not the same ideology, but in the way that ISIS you can't take it and say, okay, these men are ISIS. Go into a community and say, okay, we're going to round up 20 ISIS members. It doesn't work that way. ISIS is the husband, the wife, the children. They're all ISIS because they're all ISIS sympathizers. And therefore, those people are always going to be a problem. And what do? You can't just kill them all, however many hundreds of thousands of people or millions of people in the case of Hamas. So in what we did in Syria is we took these people. There were 40 busloads, if I can recall correctly, 40 busloads of people. And these were men, women, and children. And they bused them up to Idlib And a lot of them had safe passage into Turkey. Turkey took them, and the people lived. They were able to live in that northeast part of Syria called Idlib, and they lived their lives and went on about their business. And then guess what? They just waited until Biden took office. And then guess what happened? The Biden administration, of course, got their little hands with your taxpayer money and started paying terrorists once again back to their old objective of getting rid of Assad. And what they did is, once again, ISIS came out of Idlib. Al Qaeda, which they call Al Nusra, who is also United States funded under Democrats, they rose up. And then guess what happened? They ousted Assad, and now terrorists run the country. so I hope that's a little bit of a lesson in what could potentially happen in this situation. Is that it's tough to call Hamas terrorists because it's not just 20 men, it's an entire group of people. Men, women, children, they would all technically be Hamas. So how do you go through those people and say, okay, your family is okay, you guys can go. Your family, no, you guys are Hamas, you have to stay. It's a really difficult situation, and I don't know exactly how we're going to handle that. Allison says they shot off her fingers. The men looked like they came out of the Holocaust. I didn't, Allison, the women definitely seem like they fared better, which makes sense, but we still don't really know their stories. I still haven't heard all the details of what actually happened to the hostages under Hamas. I have no idea. And so hopefully we'll someday find out. Glenn says maybe we should trade some WNBA players for hostages. Not a bad idea, Glenn. Not a bad idea. Good morning, Dottie. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Scott. So as you can see, I know that was a long way to tell the story, but as you can see, it's not so easy to just get rid of Hamas. It's just not so easy. And the same thing goes for Hezbollah, this in Lebanon. The same thing goes for the Houthis in Yemen. And, it would be very similar if another country called us conservatives the Patriots. How about we become a terror group called the Patriots? And they wanted to come into the United States and eradicate the Patriots. Well, then you're going to look at us and say, okay, well, who are the Patriots? Is it just the men? Is it the women too? Is it the kids also? Is it the whole family? Well, it's pretty much the whole country, right? And it's very much the same with Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah. It's people who have been oppressed, who have risen up against the oppressors. And some people call them terrorists, some people call them liberators. It depends on which side of the fence you're on. So it's a very difficult thing to decide what happens to the people in Gaza. It's a very difficult situation because they are humans. They are innocent children. There are people there who certainly don't agree with Hamas and certainly don't agree with taking and holding hostages. But these their very lives depend on Hamas, because if it weren't for Hamas, they probably, wouldn't have food. They probably wouldn't have a lot of the things that they do have, so it's a tough situation. Good morning, Rob. And we'll just have to wait and see how it unfolds on Saturday. We'll just have to see at noon. I don't know if that's our time noon or Hamas time noon. I'm guessing it's our time, but I think it's kind of funny that Donald Trump said noon. It kind of reminded me of one of the old West. We're going to settle this at high noon in the town square. So I love that about Trump. It is pretty darn funny. So that's one of the things to talk about that's going on this coming weekend. We'll see how all of that unfolds. Colonel Joe Adams, we are ISIS. That is true. we have funded ISIS. We are ISIS. Democrats, not us, but people see us like we're ISIS, though. If you're a conservative, I can guarantee you that Democrats think of us as a terror group, which is kind of funny, isn't it? And I'm kind of waiting. And we know that Donald Trump, I know Colonel Joe Adams would agree that the term terrorism is certainly subjective. Good morning, Tammy and Jerry Hoover. And we called Donald Trump, and of course, Justin Trudeau of Canada has recently designated the cartels as terrorists. I would like to know when they're going to designate the gangs here in the United States as terrorists. To me, if you belong to a gang, you should also be considered a terrorist. And I hope someday that they go down that path and at least give an idea, because the terrorists in our country certainly do need some credit for the actions that they commit. And unfortunately, in some areas like the city of St. Louis, just not doing enough, to fight gang activity, to fight drug trafficking, to fight sex trafficking. You can go out in parts of the city of St. Louis and you know where the prostitutes hang out. You know where the drug activity is. You know where the gangs are. You know where they live. You know where they drive. You know where they're at. And it's infiltrated our society to the point where we just look the other way because we think, well, I can't do anything about it. And the city government refuses to do anything about it. The police, their hands are tied. As an example, the city of St. Louis, our police officers are, gosh, well overworked. Talk about sleep deprivation, which is what I was talking about earlier this morning with myself. They receive very few benefits. They just got a pay increase. But I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous, the most ridiculous pay increase I've ever seen. And these people, they're out and, they're risking their lives for us every single day. And you don't have to live in the city for you to benefit, from the police there risking their lives, because we all drive through the city of St. Louis at some point because you have to get back and forth to different places. And it's really a shame how we have treated law enforcement in our country. And I know we will eventually get there with Donald Trump. We will eventually get there. I have no doubt in my mind that Donald Trump will at some point address law enforcement in this country, and he will absolutely make sure that these law enforcement departments are funded, that police have the equipment that they need. Because, I'm sure most of police departments, they do not have the equipment they need. They absolutely do not. They are, I remember a time back in Chicago, which is where I'm from, in telling this story where there are, the gangs in Chicago outnumbered the police by what, like 300%, something along those lines. And it's no different all across the world. Allison says the people of Gaza would have much more if Hamas did not spend all their money on tunnels and weapons. Yes and no, Allison. Again, I am not a sympathizer to Hamas. I'm not a sympathizer to anyone, quite honestly, other than humans. And the problem is if you take a situation where, let's say, us conservatives, we were getting to the point under Joe Biden, and had Kamala Harris won, we probably would have been building tunnels ourselves, because we were going to be so restricted that we were going to have to hide our weapons. We were going to have to hide a lot of different things from our government, because if we didn't, we were going to be punished very severely. So anytime you have a group of people who are not free of will to do what they want to do, to live the way they want to live, to have a surplus of food and of water, and to live in peace, they're going to start acting out, and doing what they need to do to have that peace, to have that freedom. And sometimes that resorts to digging tunnels. I mean, again, I'm not sympathizing with Hamas in any way. Everything they've done is absolutely atrocious. But again, I feel like under Kamala Harris, had Kamala Harris won this election, oh my gosh, we would be in such a different place than we are right now. I don't know that we would have been able to handle another 4 years under Democrat rule. I don't know what would have happened to us. Would we have resorted to having to, build our own tunnels underground? What would we have had done, to secure our weapons? Because they were going to take our weapons from us. There's no question about it. They were going to have lockdowns. And what would happen in those situations? I don't know. But I think we have to look at other groups of people, even people we don't agree with, who we know have done atrocious things, just like we in America have to every country on this planet. We've certainly victimized a lot of people out there. I think we just have to think about what people do in desperate situations. And it's just unfortunate that here in the United States that, or really all across the world, that we can't come to some sort of peace and harmony where we can say, okay, this is my religious belief, but hey, you across the border, I respect your religious belief. You be you, we'll be us. And we all just live harmoniously, but it can't happen. It simply cannot happen. It's not happening in our own country, which is why we're going to talk about a Democrat meltdown today. Jay says, since most gangs are predominantly made up of minorities, it will never happen. And that's true because we know what would come out of that. Alan says St. Louis activists have set up a hotline to report if you see ICE activity that should be illegal. It should be illegal. It absolutely should be illegal. And Tom Homan is narrowing down on all of these different people, doing actions exactly like that. And he has already said that he believes it's the FBI, that there's a leak in the FBI. And that is who is informing people of ICE raids. And particularly what's so crazy about that is that the FBI is in place to investigate crime, to get the violent criminals off the street. They investigate a lot of different types of crimes. And yet to think that we have a group like Trende Aragua, who has a Venezuelan gang that's come into this country, has taken over apartment buildings, has murdered people, has robbed people. They have amassed in this country millions of dollars because they have formed organized crime groups where they go out and they burglarize very wealthy homes and they take their jewels and their cash. They've held people, hostage during these raids of their homes. And, they've committed acts of rape and a lot of different things, trafficking, drug trafficking, sex trafficking. And the FBI would want to protect these people. And we know that somebody leaked information to Trende Aragua in Colorado, and these people fled. The gangs fled the apartment buildings before ICE arrived. And Tom Homan said, I'm going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to find out exactly what happened here. And he's narrowed it down to the FBI, that someone within the FBI is leaking this information. Now, he probably already knows who that is. We don't know yet. Some of you might. Colonel Joe Adams might. I don't. But we're going to find out. We are absolutely going to find out. And then we're going to find out there's going to be prosecutions, just like it was announced yesterday. Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, facing prosecution. Why? For abetting illegals in her states. Donald Trump issued an executive order. If you go against that executive order, whether you're a governor, a mayor, a police chief, whoever you might be, if you go against Donald Trump's executive orders, you are going to be prosecuted. I hope that message is loud and clear. You will be prosecuted. And, we're going to talk about the judges. Of course, there's a lot of liberal judges standing up against Donald Trump's executive orders. And guess what? Those liberal judges are going to be dealt with. And we're going to talk about that here in just a couple seconds. And let's see here. STL needs different elected officials before law enforcement changes can for the better. They do. But Donald Trump has paid special attention to the city of St. Louis. Back when he was in his last term, he specifically selected St. Louis to be an area of violent crime, a lot of people on our streets with warrants that just were not being arrested. And that's, anything from violent crime to pedophile, people who had abused children in the past. And so they sent out these multi-agency task force into the city of St. Louis. They made thousands of arrests to the point where there were no beds left. There were no beds to place these people. They were, trying to find beds all over the country for these federal prosecutions because they're like, okay, Kim Gardner, remember old Kimmy? I guess she's a nurse somewhere now. Well, old Kimmy just wasn't prosecuting people. Even after confessions, she wasn't prosecuting people. So the federal government had to step in and they had to take over. And I think that's going to happen in a lot of cities across this country. I think eventually we're just not there yet because we've got a lot of work to do before we get to that point. But it is on the agenda, I am sure, where Donald Trump's administration, they're going to come into these cities where there's crime is rampant and they're going to do something. I absolutely believe they're going to fund police. They're going to make sure police have the equipment that they need. They are going to make sure that they have extra benefits that they don't currently have now that they deserve. And hopefully they're going to take away those 12-hour shifts because we cannot have our first responders overworked. That doesn't serve anyone. Hopefully we're going to get more 9/11 dispatchers. 9/11, what am I talking about? 911. Oh man, it's like a Monday all over. 911 dispatchers in, police dispatchers, and give them some good benefits as well. We're going to work on it. I promise you that, and it's going to happen. And look at the crap AOC is sharing about avoiding ICE. I know, and she's another one. She needs to be prosecuted. She needs to be prosecuted. Allison, when your religious beliefs are to kill Americans and Jewish people, that's concerning. It absolutely is. It's concerning to me, Allison, when religious beliefs want to kill anyone. I don't care what side of the fence you're on. If you want to kill someone over religious beliefs, it is very concerning. But guess what? It has happened since the beginning of time. It is unfortunately in our nature to eliminate people that aren't like us. And it's a sad part of human nature. And I hope someday we somehow evolve out of that instinct to kill. But it's been happening since the very beginning. We read about it in the Bible. People want to kill the people who are not like them. I don't know how easy that's going to change. Let's see. I cannot imagine any parent wanting their child to be a police officer. Terrifying. Thank God. Some people still want that as a career. They have, let's see, loosened the criteria to become an officer, which is concerning too. Some criteria, yes. Some people say, well, a police officer needs to live in the community that they're policing. But then it got to the point, like with the city of St. Louis, where if you stick to that criteria, you won't have many police officers. So then they widened the net a little bit and said, okay, you can come into St. Louis City from other areas and be a police officer. And thank God for that. But I can remember some petty stuff. One of the old former police chiefs of St. Louis City was a good friend of mine. And I can remember, officers would be very upset about having to cover tattoos or whether or not they could wear beanie hats versus another hat, or whether they could wear short sleeves instead of long sleeves. And there was a lot to all of that goes on, a lot of different stuff going on, within various police departments. But we'll get there. We will get there despite of St. Louis City leadership. We will get there. Good morning, Joe Fry, the guitar guy. Jay, have to have more people joining the police force before we can lower hours worked. Yes, and that comes with funding. If we start paying our first responders, our law enforcement officials, the money they deserve, guess what? More people are going to join the force. As we tackle violent crime, more people are going to want to be police officers. There was a time in this country where police officers were the good guys, remember? They still are to us, but not to everyone. I can remember my first encounter with a police officer, as a matter of fact. I probably had other ones that I don't know about, but I can remember being in second grade and Officer Friendly came in. Do you remember Officer Friendly? And he had a hot plate, a frying pan, or a skillet of some type, and some candy bars and junk. And I remember he did a demonstration of okay, well, this is how easily you can end up with drugs, taking candy from strangers. And right there in the classroom, he took some stuff, sprinkled it in the pan with a melted Hershey bar, and then somehow mixed this stuff in, reformed the Hershey bar, put it back into the packaging. And I remember being like in awe, like, oh my gosh, could that really happen? And to this day, that lesson has stuck with me about drugs. And since that day, I've always seen police as the good people. Always, always, always. Not to say there aren't bad apples, but for me, and that one experience taught me a lifetime of lessons. And from that moment on, I've always seen the police as being my friend. And of course, I've never been on the other side of the law for them not to be my friend. But, I think it's important that we start seeing police officers in a new light. And that's going to happen. And Glenn, I agree. Trump campaigned on this issue. Yes, he did. And we absolutely do need to work on the police force. Glesna says, George Pradle. Glesna, I don't know who that is. I probably should, but I'm not sure who that is. I'll have to look that up. And of course, here in Illinois, we talked about that the other day. Our lovely Governor Pritzker in the state of Illinois wanting to confiscate guns, from people who have received an order of protection, or I should say, people who have been served with an order of protection. And I think that's silly to me. So it's so easy to go out and get an order of protection, and that to say that you're going to take the gun away from weapons away from someone because they've been served with an order of protection without them ever going through court, without a trial, without any evidence at all, just take their weapons away. And then I heard about a case yesterday where a court found that the FOID card in Illinois was not constitutional. There was a judge that ruled that in a case where a woman protected herself and she shot somebody that came into her home, and somebody in the state of Illinois was attempting to prosecute her over shooting a home invader. And the judge ruled that, hey, you are an American citizen first, an Illinoisan second, and that it is unconstitutional to tell people that they cannot protect themselves in their own homes. And by telling people they have to have a FOID card to have a firearm in their home to protect themselves is unconstitutional. So we'll see where that leads to us in the state of Illinois. I'm not going to say the great state of Illinois because it's not. There's good things about Illinois. There's some really fantastic people in Illinois. And believe it or not, Illinois largely is more conservative than Missouri. For those of you in Missouri thinking, oh my gosh, Illinois, outside of the city of Chicago, outside of Cook County, Illinois is far more conservative than Missouri, which most people would never believe, but it is true. And Mr. Parnell, cops are never your friend or on your side. Now, see, I'm not sure why you would say that. I think that police are absolutely our friend and on our side, and we all have the same objectives. Is how I feel. I think that too many people don't have respect for police officers, and they get pulled over and they get mouthy, or they jump to conclusions and think that the officers are bad and start being defensive, which just ends up backfiring. And then that's a subject for another day, but I certainly have nothing but respect for our police officers. Charles, I envision President Trump and Governor Pritzker to be at odds over the ICE raids in Chicago. Chicago is a major sanctuary city. I expect that after they're finished with New York and prosecuting Kathy Hochul and her little band of buddies, I think that they're going to be coming probably after Pritzker too. They're probably going to be coming after a lot of people because, as you know, what's next on the Trump agenda is that we're uncovering all of this money. I mean, trillions of dollars. It's going to be, as we said on Tuesday, quadrillions of dollars of money that's uncovered, that was spent, that shouldn't have been spent in the way that it was. And then guess what's going to happen? We're going to find out, okay, how is it that somebody like Schumer ended up with $82 million? How did that happen? A man who's only worked as a public servant has somehow amassed $82 million. How did Governor Newsom of California end up with a $9 million house? How did that happen? And so Trump has stated that next on the agenda is that we're going to look into all of these people who are not just government employees, but people who work in some official capacity with the government, as well as these non-government entities, the NGOs. How did they amass their fortunes? How is it that they're paid, let's say a senator, $200,000, $220,000, and all of a sudden they have millions of dollars at the bank? How did this happen? Are we going to go back through the IRS and audit them? How are we going to know where their money come from? Are we going to see all these cookbacks, kickbacks? I was thinking about Cook County still, kickbacks, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. And will these people be prosecuted? Look at Chelsea Clinton. Why did you said pay her $84 million? Why? Is she going to be prosecuted because she received money that wasn't due to her? We don't know. It's what investigations are for. But I am hearing already the Trump administration saying you have to pay it back. We're going to hear a lot about that. You have to pay it back. Politico, who received, what was it, $8 million from, you said, Donald Trump is saying, hey, Politico, you have to pay that money back. That's not your money to keep. You received it fraudulently. You should have never been paid, this money to slant news stories one direction or another. You have to pay it back. Now, are we going to go to every member of Congress and say, okay, you should have made $100,000 each year, but here you are with a bank account of $100 million. You're going to have to pay that money back. That money should have never gone to you. You obtained that money illegally. Because I think I don't know how far Trump's going to go with this, but I think we all know how the law works, don't we? If you're selling drugs, or if you're part of a Ponzi scheme, or if you've committed some type of act of embezzlement and you're prosecuted, guess what? You have to pay that money back. You received that money illegally and you have to pay it back. And so I think it'll be very interesting to see how things unfold. Are these people going to be prosecuted? Are they going to be told that they have to pay the money back. That'll be pretty interesting, won't it? To see somebody like Schumer have to come up with, $80 million to pay back to the United States government. And Allison says, let's see their tax returns. I would love to see their tax returns. Pelosi, yep. Now, Pelosi's husband does own a large company, but it would be pretty interesting to see exactly how much money came from USAID or other government entities into her husband's company, or if they were funded under the government for some certain reason. We know the Clintons, the Obamas, they all have their different little groups. The Obamas, they have Public Allies, if you know what the group called Public Allies is, and that group has been heavily funded through a group like you said. We have the Clintons. What is their group called? America Corps, is that right? AmeriCorps, I think is right. I haven't talked about that in many years. I think it's called AmeriCorps. And it's the same thing as Public Allies. Obama, remember back in the day when he said that he would like to create a military of citizens that is just as powerful as the United States military. Well, he did exactly that. And it's called Public Allies. And we, under Obama, funded Public Allies. And the Clintons said the same thing. We're going to fund AmeriCorps. And guess what? They did the same thing. They funded their own groups. And a lot of that money just came back around into their own pockets. And Glenn says, McConnell, I don't know how many millions of dollars McConnell has, but I bet you it's a lot. And speaking of McConnell, he is the one person, and there might have been more, but I know him specifically, that voted against Tulsi Gabbard. And as you guys know, Tulsi Gabbard, of course, completing her nomination yesterday, which is absolutely fantastic. Kash Patel, I absolutely believe, will have his nomination as well. Robert Kennedy Jr. absolutely will receive his nomination, because guess what? We're in power, Democrats. We're in power. You might not like it, but we are definitely in power. And I'm going to show you some examples of that here in just a second. And Allison, man, anyone who is found guilty of insider trading, they need to go to prison. All of these people need to go to prison. They really do. If you have received money that was not due to you through money laundering, through kickbacks, through any other entity other than the job you did, you need to pay that money back. And if you can't pay the money back, you need to go to prison. It's simple as that. And I hope we see this happen. I really hope we do. And we'll have to see how it plays out, but I think it's coming. Charles says if they spent the money and can't pay it back, the IRS traditionally wants the income taxes on their ill-gotten gains. Yes. And did they pay taxes on this money? They probably did. They were probably at least smart about that part of it. But who knows? They're not very smart people. Glenn says he voted against Hegseth too. He did, because he's a communist. That's the way I feel about it. Allison, RFK Jr. confirmation today. Yeah, I do think he'll get it. And was very happy to see Tulsi Gabbard, get hers. She deserves it. She has fought hard, for us Americans. And so a couple things I'm going to show. I got a lot of videos here to talk about today, and I know I've been blabbing, so we're running out of time. And I want to show you some examples of Democrat meltdown. Then we're going to talk about some good stuff that's going on. But I'm telling you, Democrats have lost their minds. Here's a lady. I don't even know who this lady is. And I think this is kind of funny because she's trying to say that manufacturing is sexist because it contains the word man. This is like the funniest thing ever. You got to watch
Yesterday, I met with a manufacturing company, but they also are engaged in getting young people more engaged in manufacturing. So I asked them, so how many of those students that are signing up and want to do this, how many are women? And they said, well, I know there's at least 13% or something. It was a low number. And you had mentioned trying to engage more women in manufacturing. I'm just wondering if just the name manufacturing sounds.
Now,
Gosh,
I'm going to be quick.
Listen to this guy.
Because I want to send a message to somebody. Elon, take your musty millions and musty Moscow rights to the moon. Because if you don't, we're going to stand up, we're going to speak out, We're going to march. We're going to do anything we need to do to make sure that the people of this country understand that the CFPB is for them. You get your musty hands off of our money or go to Moscow. You musty moo.
I laughed so hard when I watched that last night. What in the world is a musty moo? It's like, how did this guy ever get into this position? A musty moo. What in the world is a musty moo? You Elon Musk, you musty moo. Kelly, what did he say? Honestly, I don't even 100% know what he said. And people there were cheering for him. He reminded me of Maxine Waters, another person who belongs in prison for inciting violence, which is, I think, what this guy was doing. I'm not even sure what this guy was saying. I don't have a clue what a musty moo is. But what's so funny about this, and I know, I can guarantee you that Elon is laughing himself silly over that ridiculous comment because none of it made any sense. None of it made any sense. It was like some weird nursery rhyme. So what's funny about this, though, and I'm seeing it on the pages of some of my Democrat friends who clearly have not gotten the memo. And they don't get the memo because they're watching MSNBC and CNN and all of these other news stations that don't tell you the whole story. They only tell you the narrative they want you to believe so that you'll hate Trump and you'll hate Elon Musk and you'll hate conservatives. But the fact is, just like we talked about, I think Monday and Tuesday, I think we mentioned it, is the Consumer Protection Agency. And that, I believe, is what this lunatic was just talking about. Because Democrats are freaking out right now because of the Consumer Protection Agency. That, oh my gosh, Elon Musk is, auditing this agency. And of course, they're only good for the people. They're and if you know what the Consumer Protection Agency does, like we talked about earlier in the week, if you've been charged crazy, ridiculous fees by your bank and you don't feel like you should have been, it's fraud of some type, you report it to the Consumer Protection Agency. They go back and they get that money, and then they're supposed to return it to you if you're the person that filed the claim. Well, they go after these lenders that want to charge a 300% interest rate, like payday loans and that type of thing, and they recover the money for you, products that were misrepresented that you've lost money on. And in doing so, the Consumer Protection Agency has amassed right now, what Elon Musk uncovered is that they have a pretty hefty bank account of $711 million, $711.5 million. And so all of these people, these Democrats having a meltdown, they think that Elon Musk, by disbanding the Consumer Protection Agency, that people will no longer be protected, that all of a sudden now the banks are all going to take advantage of us. We're interest rates are going to increase to 400%, and we're going to have no recourse because this agency is not there to protect us. Well, let me tell you something about this agency. They amassed that $711 million from from people who filed claims. They were supposed to pay that money back to the person who filed the claim, but they don't. And they kept a lot of that money. And so therefore, they have amassed $711 million. And all of these people who are having this meltdown over the Consumer Protection Agency, they're saying, oh, Elon Musk is going to keep that money. Well, Elon Musk doesn't need their $711 million. And in fact, what Elon Musk has said, like we talked about earlier in the week, Elon Musk said, the American people deserve that money back, that the Consumer Protection Agency should take that money, they should divide it up and send every American a check. Now, how can anyone disagree with that? But see, Democrats don't know this. They only know that Elon Musk audited the Consumer Protection Agency and that department is very likely going to be disbanded, of course, with their head official losing his job, as he should. But it's just another organization that took advantage of the American people. Yes, they did do some good things, and they do some good things. But part of our restructuring of the government, including the Consumer Protection Agency, is that we're going to take away the bad and we're going to keep the good. So anyone should know, Democrats for some reason can't wrap their heads around it, but Donald Trump is going to make sure that you are protected from these ridiculous lending practices, overdraft charges from your banks that are excessive, or really high interest rates that no American can pay, and predatory lending. There's no question he's still going to uphold those standards. It might not be called Consumer Protection Agency. It might be called something else. What's going to happen to that $711 million? Is it going to go back to the people? It should, but Democrats don't get it. They're not hearing that side of the story. They only hear that, Elon Musk is disbanding this department. Nobody's going to be left to protect us. We're just going to be on our own. Banks are going to take advantage of us now. And it's almost like, it's so crazy that I feel like they've lost any common sense they had left is just completely out the window. They've lost all sense of the reality because they hate Donald Trump and they hate Elon Musk so much that they can't even get a grasp on what's really going on here. Lori says no sound. If anyone else doesn't have sound, let me know. But nothing has changed on my end. I hope I still have sound. And that says idiotic word salads from the left. Joe says, so many illiterate people in the world. And Glenn says he shouldn't be blasting a fellow African American. That's right. Also true. And Charles, yes, it does sound like an SNL skit coming. No question about it. And here's another funny one. Let's see here. I'm going to play this clip for you. Because you know what? Talking about, money, wasteful spending. And, it's only brown people, of course, who get the extra welfare is what they want to tell us. Well, guess what? We're deporting Ukrainians too. Donald Trump has revoked the order that allowed Ukrainians fleeing from the Russia-Ukrainian war to come to the United States. And you guys probably, I don't know how many people were listening back then, but just, I don't know, it was in July. In July of 2024, I was telling the story how I came across a man who was a truck driver here in the United States. And the story is that he is Ukrainian. He came over here by himself. His family wasn't allowed to come with him for whatever reason. He was here. He became a truck driver through a work program. And this is what this video I'm going to show you is about. And he came over through this work program. And what the work program allowed him to do, this blows my mind, and it will blow your mind too if you didn't hear my story before. He came over here on this 2-year deal. So he comes here, he gets a job at a trucking job, driving, hauling cars around the country. And the government worked this deal out for him to get this job. So he took this job with this trucking company. And the deal is that he has to work this job for 6 months. And if he works for 6 months, then his family can come over to the United States and join him. He has to work it consistently for 6 months. But in order for him to stay in the country, he has to work this job for 2 years. Now, working for this trucking company, driving this truck around, he gets paid twice the salary of other truck drivers for the same company. And the reason why is because the trucking company has to pay him the same as they would pay any other truck driver. Well, in order for him to be in this program, the government also pays him the same salary. They match his salary that the trucking company is paid. So let's say he's making $60,000 a year through this trucking company. Well, the government is paying him $60,000 a year to match it. And on top of that, they're paying his housing. He's working. He's making twice as much as these other people in the same company. And the government is not only paying his salary, doubling his salary, they're paying his health care. He's still getting food assistance. He's still getting tuition if he needs free tuition. All of these benefits. It is the most mind-boggling thing on the planet. And I'm thinking, why doesn't anyone talk about this? I just couldn't figure it out. And then I see this video and I'm like, gee, somebody's finally, and of course, Democrats, they don't want to believe it. They say, oh, that's not true. And I think it's so funny that this news show did a report on it to try to find out, is it true or is it not true? And they don't go into all the details, but it's the same situation.
One year after the start of Russia's invasion, thousands of Ukrainians are temporarily living in the U.S.
There are some viral videos claiming Ukrainians are receiving benefits like Social Security while they're living here.
So Jerry Carnes with our Verified team is digging into the claim.
President Joe Biden is committed to welcoming 100,000 Ukrainians who fled the war there to find their way here to the United States. There are viral videos like this one questioning that commitment.
President Biden has made it legal for Ukrainian immigrants to get SSI checks.
Our viewers asked us to verify if Ukrainians here in the United States are receiving benefits like Social Security. Let's check. Our sources are the Social Security Administration, the Office of Refugee Resettlement, the Uniting for Ukraine program, and immigration lawyer Charles Cook. According to Cook, there are 3 ways Ukrainians can legally seek refuge here. One is through the Uniting for Ukraine program. Those who qualify can stay in the U.S. for up to 2 years as humanitarian parolees and receive some benefits.
They're eligible for food stamps. They're eligible for supplemental Social Security, SSI. They're eligible for insurance, Medicare.
The Social Security Administration says that certain Ukrainians in the U.S. may be eligible for SSI benefits. The Office of Refugee Resettlement confirms humanitarian parolees may also be eligible for assistance through existing programs, like the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, health care through Medicaid, and food through SNAP.
No, they're not lifetime on the taxpayer dole. This is basically helping refugees who couldn't help themselves.
So we can verify it's true. Some Ukrainians.
It's true. Yes, of course it's true. Of course it's true. And guess what? These Ukrainians are going to be boarding planes and they're going to be going back to Ukraine. Program ended by Donald Trump, as it should be. Can you imagine working at a company and just because somebody came into our country that was fleeing a war situation, I understand why they came here, that all of a sudden they're working the same hours you're working, doing the same job you're doing, but receiving twice the pay, guaranteed a job for 2 years, and they're getting all of their expenses paid by the government. You know, and that's you're paying for that. I'm paying for that. That's where our tax dollars are going. And how can any Democrat look at this situation and say, oh, I support that. I think that's a great idea. It's absolutely insane. And Robert says they are acting this way because they view it as their money. Kickback Jack. Of course they do. You know, Democrats, of course, involved in government activities, you know, from lobbyists to Congress and all over the board, they're furious because their payday is over. And they know their payday is over. They are furious about it. Allison says, I heard on podcasts that Ukraine is selling American weapons to the Mexican cartel. Well, hopefully, Allison, you've heard that on many podcasts, including this one, because we've talked about it many times. It is absolutely true. It's been going on, though, for a very long time. And before it was Ukraine, it was the United States funding the cartels through other means. You know, Ukraine just happens to be the country most recently, but we've been doing that for a very, very long time now. You know, I can't recall which company. I think it was Afghanistan before it was Ukraine, where we would give them weapons and then they would sell them to the cartels. It's a never-ending process, and we've certainly talked about it a lot. I hope everyone's talking about it. Mr. Purnell, Trump is still going to fund Ukraine. I saw a video yesterday. Yeah, we talked about that also. That yes, you know, I'm disappointed by that. I don't know to what degree, and this new peace deal he's working out between Russia and Ukraine. We'll see where that goes. We know for sure, we've always known it kind of, that Ukraine will not become a member of NATO, which we've always suspected would never happen, is a done deal now. Not going to happen. Hegseth said, nope, never going to be a member of NATO. And then we have Donald Trump meeting with Putin. I think Putin, if I can say it right, he's going to be coming to the United States. They had a phone call working out a peace deal. So we'll see where that goes. And I hope we stop sending weapons and any type of aid to Zelensky, because that's who it's going. It's going in his pocket. So here's some other things. Oh, Glesna, my son's a truck driver. He doesn't get that. Of course not. And that's why I'm saying, Glesna, it's so unfair to the people who are truly out there, you know, working their butt off, doing a job, that the government is paying the person who or their coworker twice as much as them. It makes no sense. There's no common sense in any of this. But the common sense is, and this is where it makes sense to Democrats, is that let's say the guy I'm talking about that was the truck driver that got twice the salary. Well, you know, somewhere in there, whatever members of Congress voted for that plan to go through, because, you know, they have to vote for a spending package. They're getting kickbacks. That's how they're getting their money, and they need to be prosecuted. All their money needs to be paid back. So I thought this was kind of funny that some things that Democrats did. This was yesterday, and of course, every single Democrat voted against confirming Tulsi Gabbard as the director of national intelligence, and some Republicans, not surprising at all if they want to call themselves Republicans. We had Senator Raphael Warnock introduce the Capping Prescription Cost Act to cap all out-of-pocket costs on prescription drugs. We had Arkansas Senate Democrats successfully voted down a bill to allow municipalities to remove fluoride from their water systems because they would love to have more fluoride in the water, right? Like, where's the common sense there? A coalition of 191 House and Senate Democrats sent a letter demanding the removal of Elon Musk's his operatives, from the Consumer Protection Agency. Oh, of course they did. Of course they did. Because they want their kickbacks. That's exactly why they did such a thing. It's exactly why they did such a thing. It's all crazy. It's absolutely insane. Everything that's going on in this world right now is insane. And, we've been talking a lot about Anna Paulina Luna and what she is working on. And, I was kind of wondering when we talked on Tuesday, I'm like, she had a big announcement to make. We weren't sure exactly what it was going to be. I thought maybe she's been really fighting hard to remove potassium bromide from our food supply. I kind of thought it might be that. And, but it's so much bigger and so much better than that, bigger and better. And what she has decided to do is she's deep diving into all of the investigations. All of us have been sitting around talking about, when are we going to hear about the Epstein list? When are we going to hear the disclosure about UFOs? When are we going to find out what's really in those files over the JFK assassination attempts? So this is her list. She's going to be investigating the assassinations of JFK, RFK, MLK. She's going to investigate the unidentified aerial objects. Already confirmation that the one that's been seen that looks like a pyramid is real. I mean, there's things already coming out. And then unidentified submerged objects. I'm less sure about what that means. I'm going to have to do some research of my own. I'm not aware of unidentified submerged objects, unless they mean the UAPs, UFOs that we see, diving into bodies of water. I'm not really sure. Maybe one of you know, Robert. I don't know if Robert, if you're still here, you probably know what that's about. The Epstein list. She's going to look into the origins of COVID-19, which I think we already know, but we'd be glad to hear some more validation. The 9/11 files. So, I mean, this was a huge announcement on her part. Again, Representative Anna Paulina Luna, Florida representative, cannot wait to hear what she has got to say. It's probably going to be some really, really good stuff. Really good stuff. But in the meantime, we've got to deal with these judges. The judges are holding us back. The judges are holding us back. And we expected that to happen. We talked about it the other day that Biden, he didn't listen to the judges, did he? Biden had his executive order where he wanted to wipe out the debt of student loan for millions of Americans that went to college for probably some really stupid objective and ended up not being able to find a job, because what can you do with a liberal arts degree, right? And so therefore he was ordered by the Supreme Court, to stand down, that no, we're not going to honor that executive order. We're not going to allow taxpayer money to pay back student loans. Well, guess what Joe Biden did? He did it anyway. He just did it anyway. And then he bragged about doing it anyway. And he even bragged and said, you know what? Yes, the Supreme Court judge told me that my executive order is not valid and told me we cannot repay these student loans. But guess what? I did it anyway. 5 million Americans, he said, he paid their loans off. And that's going to go against him. That is going to go against him, because now Donald Trump can say, hey, well, guess what? Joe Biden ignored the court's order, and I'm going to do the same thing. But Trump's going to take it Andrew Jackson did too. If you go back to Andrew Jackson's term, that was quite some time ago, but he also defied a court order and carried out the executive orders that he had. And so Donald Trump is going a step further. He is actually going to find a way to impeach these liberal judges. And I am going to, let's see if I can pull it up here really quick. We will listen to the official press secretary
Before I take
statement
questions,
right here.
I would like to address an extremely dishonest narrative that we've seen emerging over the past few days. Many outlets in this room have been fear-mongering the American people into believing there is a constitutional crisis taking place here at the White House. I've been hearing those words a lot lately. But in fact, the real constitutional crisis is taking place within our judicial branch, where district court judges in liberal districts across the country are abusing their power to unilaterally block President Trump's basic executive authority. We believe these judges are acting as judicial activists rather than honest arbiters of the law. And they have issued at least 12 injunctions against this administration in the past 14 days, often without citing any evidence or grounds for their lawsuits. This is part of a larger concerted effort by Democrat activists and nothing more than the continuation of the weaponization of justice against President Trump. Quick news flash to these liberal judges who are supporting their obstructionist efforts: 77 million Americans voted to elect this president. And each injunction is an abuse of the rule of law and an attempt to thwart the will of the people. As the president clearly stated in the Oval Office yesterday, we will comply with the law in the courts, but we will also continue to seek every legal remedy to ultimately overturn these radical injunctions and ensure President Trump's policies can be.
That is right. Sorry, it always cuts off there at the last second, and I just do not know why. So there we go. Donald Trump, he's going to honor, of course, what the court has decided. However, we'll just get rid of the judges. How about that? Judges can be impeached, and we will find a way to circumvent these judges in all of the ridiculous, because we know they're just lunatics. No common sense, absolute lunatics. Joe Biden did it. Well, you know what? We can do it too. Andrew Jackson did it. We can do it too. But overall, we're in a very winning place right now. We had 75,000 government employees that took the buyout, and of course, a judge finally ruling in favor of Donald Trump that yes, the buyout is legal. Yes, demanding that the buyout end, the offer ends on a certain day, is legal, and so therefore, 75,000 government employees took the buyout. I believe it's 8 months. They'll be paid their full salary for 8 months, full benefits for 8 months, and then see you later. They're out the door. And it's going to save our country, many millions, if not billions of dollars. And that's exactly what we need to do. Think about that. All of this money we are no longer going to be paying out. The numbers are astronomical. I mean, they're astronomical. And when you really go and look at it, if you really take all of this money out of the picture, out of the equation, all the fraud they've uncovered, all the money laundering, all the kickbacks, if you take it all out, and the money that we are paying in, we're actually at a surplus. Our country will be at a surplus. We will have more money than we would ever need if everybody pays the same taxes they're paying now, which isn't going to happen, by the way. Taxes are definitely going to lessen. Income tax probably being abolished, the IRS being abolished, everything's going to change. However, at the rate we're currently going, if we took all the tax money going in, and we take away all the kickbacks, all the money laundering, all of these ridiculous payouts that our government has been paying to not only other countries, but to individuals here. I mean, Chelsea Clinton alone would save us $84 million. We are at a surplus. We are a very wealthy country. The problem is that everybody's had their little hands in the pie and they're all taking the money away. And we, not being part of the government, not being able to get our kickbacks, we end up being pushed further and further down into the lower income realms. And of course, that's the Democrats' plan, isn't it? Is to force everyone, even the middle class, totally destroy the middle class, take everyone into poverty. And guess what? So they can get more money. Can you see the big funnel that's taking place now? Here all the money is going out to all of these people who are already wealthy off of your money. And then they're pushing us all the way back down and wanting us to work more, work harder, work longer hours, work more days, and just so they can profit off of our tax money. And we are going to work on it. Oh, Glesna, now your sound is gone. I don't know. I haven't touched anything. None of the sound should be gone. So I apologize if there's something going on that I don't know about. Tracy, you said, I don't see anything about all of the underground tunnels, the kids being trafficked through there, anything on that. Tracy, I haven't heard anything about that either. And I'm assuming you mean tunnels here in the United States, because we know there are tunnels, here in the United States. And a story for another day. But I think we've seen all these sinkholes, these different things that take place. I am a person, and again, this is off topic, and we'll talk about it another day. But I believe that a lot of people don't agree with me, and I understand that. I believe that there have been many civilizations in the past, many civilizations, and we just continue to build on top of those civilizations. And so, therefore, below us, there's a lot of stuff down there, a lot of things below us. And at some point in time, because of these civilizations that are below us, there are a lot of underground cities. There are a lot of tunnels. There's a lot of different things right below our feet in some areas. And so, and of course, a lot of people know about those things, and a lot of people have found ways to take advantage of what's happening underground. And no one talks about it really. I don't really understand why. People want to say, oh, that's not true. But there's lots of evidence that it actually is true. It is true. And people, they dig down to a certain degree and they say, oh, there's a woolly mammoth. Let's just stop here. We found what was there. Well, how about dig down a little bit further and see what you find under the woolly mammoth? They'll find they'll dig down and find a beautiful Greek mezzanine. And then they think, oh, well, we found what was there, so we were going to stop here. No, dig further. There's a lot more underneath there that we don't know about. And certainly people in the know have figured out ways to take advantage of what's below us. And the reason why no one talks about it, because they don't want you to know it's there. Because if you know it's there, then you'll know what they're doing down there. And there is a down there. Don't kid yourself and think there's not. Let's see here. Sherry says the records department proves underground. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, Sherry, underground that a lot of people don't talk about. They don't want us to talk about that. Gosh, then we would know some of the secrets that there have been many civilizations before us, and that there are below many areas of our world great palaces, believe it or not, a lot of technology that was somehow lost and now we've magically regained. There's a lot that happened in our ancient civilizations, including a lot of people believe space travel. That's probably a story for a Friday, but it is true. I don't know why people see it as such a crazy, theory when there's lots of proof that it's true. And I had a show about it once on a Friday, and everybody's like, "What? There's no way." It's true. And so some of the things I want to get into, and we only got a few minutes left. I wanted to jump into Dr. Fauci, because I'll tell you how did he obtain $12.6 million? How does that happen as a director of the NIH? How does he obtain $12.6 million? Now, I know people get bonuses. I know people who are CEOs of companies who receive more than $12 million a year in bonuses, but they're legitimate. They're doing legitimate work. They're saving this, they're building money for their clients or investors, and they're saving the company a lot of money. That's a different story. But this is this is a whole different situation with Dr. Fauci. His wealth surged. Now, he doesn't just have $12.6 million. He's got a lot more money than that. But somehow during COVID, he obtained another $12.6 million. How does something like that happen? And he obtained this money between 2019 and 2021. Imagine that. Now, these were financial disclosures by the National Institute of Health. But when you think about it, okay, so you can kind of think of different ways where maybe he could have legitimately obtained that money. But this is a government-funded program. This is not a private company. So therefore, how did he obtain all of this additional wealth? A private company is a different story. They can give bonuses to their CEOs and other employees as much as they want. But this is government money, your taxpayer money, that somehow funded Dr. Fauci with $12.6 million from 2019 to 2021. How does something like this happen? It just doesn't make sense. He receives an annual salary of $480,000. That's more than the president of the United States makes. And this guy is with the National Institute of Health. And let's see here. Let's break this down a little bit. So in 2021, this is just for 1 year in 2021, he received $901,000 in a grant from the Israel-based Dan David Foundation for a speech. That's it. For a speech, $901,000, nearly $1 million. $2.82 million from a mix of federal income and benefits. Federal income and benefits. And let's see, $1 million from outside awards and royalty, because if you remember, he won this $1 million reward If you guys used to listen to us on the war on COVID, Dr. Fauci was, I can't remember what it was. He won like Doctor of the Year, I don't know, something like that, and got $1 million for that. And then he got $910,000 from investment gains, probably because he's probably invested. And I can't prove this. I'm just thinking he's probably invested in all these pharmaceutical companies. And the NIH data revealed that the agency itself, they earned $710 million in royalties during the pandemic. $690 million went to the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, of course, a sub-agency led by Dr. Fauci. Now, will he have to pay that money back? I don't know. Is he going to be prosecuted? I don't know. But we need to look into all of these people. We're going to do the deep dive into these people. And Donald Trump is going to find out, where did the money go? Where did the money go? And then we're going to see what happens. Do we get restitution? Is that money going to come back to the American people? Because I'll tell you what, Elon Musk has said he wants everyone to be a millionaire. He wants us to be the wealthiest country in the world. He does not want you to struggle to pay your bills. He wants you to be able to put money back into your community for you to live a wonderful life, however you choose to live your wonderful life. And not just conservative, but Democrats too. They just don't seem to hear that side of things. And Elon Musk, if it's up to him, he wants a lot of this money to come back to the people. Now, will that happen? Will it not happen? I would say if you have been a taxpayer in the United States, you very well could end up getting a big check coming to you at some point in the near future. And because, clearly this money, this is your money. It's not the government's money. This is your money. It's all your money. And therefore, yes, some of that money should come back to you. We'll see if it works out. I hope it works out. And we'll have a lot more about some of these things to talk about tomorrow. Joe says the U.S. have alien technology. Most likely the UFOs belong to the U.S. underground tunnels, is how they move the children they have trafficked. Yes, on all fronts, Joe. Yes, on all fronts. And I believe that we do have alien technology. Now, again, a topic for another day. I'm not going to get into aliens today, but maybe tomorrow. Fridays can be a little bit more fun, right? And we're almost out of time, and I want to talk about microplastics before we head out. But think about this, okay? Alien technology. My personal beliefs, you don't have to agree with me. It's perfectly fine. You can even think I'm crazy, and that's perfectly fine with me. I probably am. But I personally believe, my personal belief system is that there were ancient civilizations here in the United States, or not the United States, the entire world, the entire earth. And we did have ancient civilizations back then. Things looked a lot different. The ocean is in a different place right now. We have deserts where there used to be ocean. Where I'm standing right now used to be a glacier. And before that, before it was a glacier, it was probably another civilization. And the earth continues to evolve. It continues to change. And that at some point way back in history, the ancient civilizations had technology very much like the technology we have now. Some say even better. And our government knows about that technology. They have discovered enough information to be able to recreate that technology. And a lot of people believe, and this one I'm not so sure on, but a lot of people believe that ancient civilizations found a way to conduct space travel. And they found ways to do, a lot of different things, which is why allegedly the CIA is so big into MK Ultra and astral projection and psychic visions, because they know these were things the ancient civilizations practiced at their peak of their high technology. And so that's why the CIA does look into these types of things and practice these types of things. And we've talked about that, I know, in the past. And so a lot of people believe, of course, that a lot of the aliens we see, the UFOs we see, are ancient human civilizations that left Earth and went to other planets. And then, of course, we have the reason why people see different types of extraterrestrial groups, why they look different, why they are different, why they fight each other, allegedly, is because they come from other planets or, around the galaxy. And so it's a long, drawn out story, more than I plan to get into today. But there are a lot of people who do believe these things. And I believe in the ancient civilizations 100%. And Joe says Epstein had an underground access by submarine. His girlfriend had her license for submarine. Fauci paid off for his part in depopulation. Let's see. Lori says, when Musk says stuff like that, it seems too good to be true. I would eye roll at that too, unfortunately. And I wouldn't, because, Lori, a lot of people don't trust Elon Musk, and I totally get it, and we'll see where that goes with him. Some people get a certain amount of power and fame, and it goes off in some crazy tangent. Look at Kanye West right now. That guy's lost his mind, and there was a time when I liked him. But Elon Musk, I think, has always been the type of person that he is now. If you go back and you look at some of his old speeches, it was exactly like it is now. His goal has always been free internet for everyone. As long as internet has been around, his goal has always been free internet for anyone. And he created SpaceX, for a lot of different things. But one of those things was to launch satellites, up into the stratosphere so that we could all have internet. And now he's enacting that plan, mostly free internet for everyone through T-Mobile. It doesn't matter what carrier your cell phone is, you will be able to access Starlink through T-Mobile. And I've heard the rates, it's free until July through a beta program. And I've heard that the rates are going to be $10 after that. So just think, for $10, you're going to be able to get Starlink access through your cell phone, and then eventually it'll probably expand from there. But, if you know anything about Elon Musk, even though the man is the wealthiest man in the entire world, he lives in one of those little tiny homes that he builds. Have you seen those? A lot of people don't even know that Tesla builds tiny homes, but they do. And they're pretty small, but they're really neat looking. I wouldn't mind having one myself, but he lives in one of those. He could live in any big mega mansion that he wanted to live in, but he chooses to live at the Starlink, or at the, not Starlink, at the SpaceX facility in one of these tiny homes. And now he's probably spending a lot of time, of course, in Washington, D.C. and at Mar-a-Lago. So we'll see. But yes, I know it sounds crazy to think that anybody would want everyone to be a millionaire. But look at the country of Monaco, do a deep dive on the country of Monaco. It's kind of people don't know a lot about Monaco, don't pay a lot of attention to Monaco. I've paid attention. I've actually met Prince Albert before, believe it or not, here in the St. Louis area. He's good friends with the Bush family. And so the country of Monaco, they're a very wealthy country. And they pay for housing, for their citizens. Their citizens are also wealthy people. And it's always been kind of like a joke in a way, where if you go to Monaco or in Dubai is no different, and you go to Monaco and you order an Uber, your Uber is like some $1 million Lamborghini that comes and picks you up, because largely the people in Monaco are very wealthy. Why? Because the government makes them wealthy. The government makes them wealthy. They want their citizens to be wealthy. So that's what happens in Monaco. Dubai is very similar. Dubai is one of the wealthiest nations in the world. And if you go to Dubai, which I've never been, I would love to go. It's the same thing. You go and call a Lyft or an Uber, and it's some, multi-million-dollar vehicle that comes to pick you up. When I call Uber, it's usually a van with a bunch of cat and dog hair. So, countries, there's a lot going on out there that countries that do things better than we do. And the reason why these countries are doing things better than what we're doing is because under the Democrat rule, they have done nothing but steal money from the people. Literally steal money from the people. Theft through taxation. We've always known it was a thing. Now we're finally seeing all of this theft uncovered. Validation is what I call it. Validation. We already knew all this was happening. Now we've got the validation. And Lori, you know what? Oh, sure, you're going to Dubai in December. I wish I were going with you. Here's the thing. We would be all millionaires had the government not stolen from us. If you would have been able to keep all the money you've earned and not paid any taxes, you would have a lot more money that you have right now. Would we all be millionaires? Not necessarily. But if you think about it, all the taxes we've paid, between you getting your paycheck and they tax that, then you go to the grocery store and your money is taxed further. You go get gasoline, it's taxed further. You start out with, let's say, your paycheck should be $150. Well, you end up getting $120 after they take out their taxes. So you go to the grocery store, you buy $50 worth of groceries, but they tax you another 10, or 5, or whatever the tax rate might be, and then of course you've got a credit card, they're charging you interest fees and taxes. Eventually you have no money left, right? Because all of your money, a good portion of it, 75 cents at least of every dollar, goes towards paying these taxes. So we would be in a far better place had Democrats not been stealing from us all along. And Lori says, we have too many crackheads in some shape or form in the United States to let that happen. Yeah, I don't know how that would look for the crackheads, quite honestly. We would have to figure out some plans for some people if everybody's going to get a big check. But I think it would go to taxpayers. I don't expect people who haven't paid taxes. Not that crackheads don't pay taxes. I'm sure many of them do. But I think if there's any money that comes back, it's going to be the people who have paid out money in taxes. And what that looks like, I don't know. It could be a tax credit. It could be just some type of stipend. I just don't know. And Pam says Elon has a beautiful vision for America, him and Trump. Yes, yes, they do. And we'll see what happens. Annette, personal property tax. Yes, yeah, I'm in Illinois. We don't have personal property tax here. Got plenty of other taxes, but not personal property tax. Illinois with a Pritzker will be the last one to get any kind of tax relief in this area. But we'll see how it all plays out. Now there's no Social Security tax here in Illinois. There's give and take, give and take. In the end, the taxes kind of come out to be even with what they take and what they give. Now, before we go, I want to talk about microplastics. I've been on this mission for quite some time now to start cooking with cast iron. I've talked about it, in the past, trying to get rid of Teflon and try to get rid of nonstick skillets and pans. Stainless steel is fine. Then we started hearing about our utensils, plastic utensils. A lot of people use those black plastic spoons you're cooking to stir your food with. Don't do that. If you have plastic utensils, get rid of them all of them. Because when plastic is heated, it leaches chemicals into your food. So those all have to be tossed out. And I try to use bamboo or wooden spoons every chance I have the opportunity of. I do have a slotted spoon that's like a black plastic, and I really just need to stop using that too. I just don't happen to have a nice wooden spoon or bamboo spoon that's slotted or stainless steel. So I'm going to have to look into that option. But, I was reading a study done in China where they were talking about microplastics causing heart failure. So they did a study and they determined that when you use plastic, let's say plastic food containers, let's say you go get takeout, their specific study was about the plastic used in takeout food from restaurants. In China, there's a lot of takeout. They use plastic containers a lot at these different takeout restaurants, which is why they did the study. But we do here in the United States as well. Don't even get me started on the styrofoam. But when they did this study, they took these plastic food containers that were coming from restaurants and they heated food in these plastic containers and then studied the food before and after being heated in plastic containers. Well, they found out that there's 20,000 different chemicals that leak out of the plastic and into your food. And these are what they call microplastics. And this particular material, it goes through your bloodstream and it ends up settling in your heart and it causes heart failure, is what this study determined. And now they didn't talk about plastic that was not heated. They only talked about plastic that was heated. So that would mean, let's say if you drink water out of a plastic bottle and that plastic bottle becomes heated. So I know my son will not buy plastic water bottles from stores where they leave the cases of water sitting outside, because obviously we've known for a long time that when plastic is heated, that it leaches chemicals into the water. And it's kind of interesting that this study has proven exactly that. And more interestingly, that it affects your heart directly. Now, they studied all different organs after ingesting this type of plastic, and they did see some other interesting findings about your gut, your biome, as they call it, how it did cause inflammation and bloating and different things like that, which is bad enough. But in the heart, they found that these microplastics gather, they travel through your bloodstream, they gather in the heart, and they lead to heart failure. And I thought that was just absolutely amazing that somebody has done this study and is releasing this information to us. And you can take it with a grain of salt. You can choose to believe it or choose not to believe it. I think most of us would agree that plastics are very harmful. They're made of exactly that, chemicals. And when you're reheating your food, let's say in the microwave, or your bottles of water are sitting in your car in the hot sun and they're heating up, well, those chemicals are leaching into your food. It might be just a plastic ladle that you're using to stir your food. Those chemicals, when heated, are leaching into your food. 20,000 different types of chemicals. And oh my gosh, and Pam says, how am I still alive? I was thinking the same thing, Pam. I'm like, I've used so much plastic in my lifetime. And it's crazy. Tracy says, water bottles are transported in hot trucks, though. I still grab one every now and again. Why can't we go back to glass bottles like when we were young? Recycle the glass. I was thinking that, Tracy, this morning myself when I was thinking of this story, because I'm like anybody else. I cook, I store my food in plastic containers in the refrigerator. And then what? What do? We put those in the microwave, right? They reheat it. And when we're doing that, we're just hurting ourselves. We've been hearing about BPAs and that type of thing, for a long time. And people will say, oh, it's BPA free plastic, but the study proves that that doesn't necessarily mean anything. 20,000 chemicals that leach into your food or your water, the microplastics that are in our system. And now what's even troubling is that they're finding, this is separate from the study, but they're finding these microplastics in our lakes and streams, rivers. It's in our water supply. If you go to your water treatment plant, they're finding microplastics in the water at treatment facilities, and they're not able to effectively clean the microplastics out of the water. So we're really facing some serious situations here. And I don't necessarily know what the answer is. Obviously at your home, you can buy a reverse osmosis system or some type of water filtration system. For me personally, I bought a reverse osmosis system a year ago. I just haven't been able to get my son to put it in for me. So hopefully he will get to that soon. And I do drink water out of bottles. I'm really bad about drinking water out of the sink. So God knows what I'm probably getting. But either way, that's something to think about. I think a lot of us need to start clearing out the kitchen, getting rid of those plastics, especially the black plastic. A separate study found that the black plastic utensils we use have far more chemicals than any other type of plastic that we could be using. Get rid of the plastic. Clean your kitchen drawers out. I know it's hard, but just get rid of it. And the same goes for your Teflon pans. Think about this for people who have chickens. You know that if you buy baby chicks and you have them in your house and you cook a lot in Teflon pans, your baby chicks can actually die from the fumes. We people are not as sensitive to it, but baby chicks are. So if there's something you're using in your home that could harm pets or animals, then guess what? Guess what it's doing to you? Just like those little Glade type things. I shouldn't say Glade because I don't know specifically which brands. I don't want to get in trouble for saying a brand name. But the little things you plug into the wall that have scent in them, they can harm animals. If they can harm your cats and dogs, what do you think they're doing to you? Certain types of floor cleaners. Some people, I'm not going to name the brand names. I know there are different types of floor cleaners out there, or floor polishers and that type of thing, where they say if you use it, you don't use it if you have pets, cats or dogs that walk around, particularly low animals like a cat, or let's say a dachshund or a schnauzer, something that's closer to the ground, because it poisons them. You can read countless stories of people's pets being poisoned by different types of scents, from candle warmers to candles to different things. So those are all things we've got to start thinking about. And Pam says, I see sponsorship in your future here. Maybe by Elon Musk. I wish Elon Musk would sponsor me. Linda, let's see. She's replying to Tracy. She says exactly what I was going to say. We have a high quality water filter and I take my water with me. That's what I want to do. That's my goal, is to get my reverse osmosis system put in. I might just have to do it myself because I don't think my son's ever going to get around to it. And how hard can it really be? I'll just watch a YouTube video or something. And I'm going to start putting it in my own containers. And I am going to phase out any bottled water or sink water, which I like, especially for whatever reason. I know this sounds crazy, but the water that comes out of my bathroom sink tastes better and is so much colder than any other water. It's so strange. Another story for another day. And let's see, Tracy says, even scented candles, which I love. I love scented candles too, but they're not good for us. They're not good for us. I'm actually working on creating my own candles, believe it or not. I bought all this candle making supplies, and I am going to try to figure out how, because I love candles. I burn candles all the time. I want to figure out how to make a nice candle that has a good scent, but is not using poison for the scent. So that's something I'm working on. And if you guys could see right across the room from me right now, I have all kinds of candle making supplies. So that's going to be next on my agenda. Like, I really have time to do that, but I'm going to. Anyway, let's see. Tracy says, how much was your reverse osmosis system? Mine was about $700, but it's a pretty big system. But you can buy like a countertop reverse osmosis system for, gosh, I've seen them as low as $100, probably even less than that. I haven't looked in a while, but there are certainly ways to get good, clean, filtered water at home, which is even better than your typical, water pitcher filter that you can purchase. So reverse osmosis is the way to go. No question about it. So tomorrow, I'm pretty much way out of time today. Tomorrow, we got a lot to talk about once again. A lot more going on. Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard is going to join us. And I'm going to talk, on Fridays, we talk a little bit about gardening. And there's two things I want to talk about. And one of those things would be soil blocking. If you've seen people, you might do it yourself, who use soil blockers. I always buy that 75 cell square thing, and I put all my seed starting mix in the little individual cells. I put my seeds there. I put them on my heating mat, and that's how I germinate my seeds. It was a highly successful method for me last year. But I've been reading a lot about soil blocking, and I find that interesting because when I was pulling my little plants out of the cells, sometimes they would break or fall apart. And when you do soil blocking, I think that would probably eliminate that problem. And they've got some pretty neat systems right now for soil blocking, if anybody has used soil blocking. And so I want to talk about that. And I also want to talk about a seed snail tomorrow, if you know what a seed snail is. These are all things that I'm planning to do this year in my garden, just kind of as an experiment to see if one is better than the other. And we'll talk about that tomorrow. And Linda says some candles are better. I love some from Pennsylvania, palm wax and clean and they burn clean. But your husband is anti-candle. Oh, I love candles. I have a candle right in front of me. And Tracy says they say to use beeswax candles and lights that at night instead of turning on lights. Better for us. I would agree with that also, Tracy. So those are all things we're going to be talking about in future shows as I start delving into my healthy candle making. And then we'll see where we go from there. Who knows? I might be making soaps and baking sourdough one of these days. I'm not there yet. I don't have time for all that, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, hope you guys have a really fantastic day. Thankfully, we didn't get any too crazy of weather yesterday. We're not walking outside today in feet of snow, which had been predicted in some areas. In my area, we really got a little, mostly nothing, just a little sprinkling here and there of sleet, but everything's good to go this morning. So I hope you guys have a good day. I will look forward to talking to you all tomorrow. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap.